I'm Jeff Goodman. Welcome to another edition of Good and Plenty Podcast. The guest today, Chris Mannix of Yahoo. We'll talk about a lot of different NBA topics, including who's the team that might get squeezed out of the Western Conference playoff race. You will be shocked by Chris Mannix's answer. Be sure to subscribe, iTunes, Stitcher, CLNS Media, and please give us your comments, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. We'll take them all. Don't worry, I've got thin skin, so bring them on. But without further ado, Chris Mannix of Yahoo. Now happy to have Chris Mannix, and Chris with a brand new haircut. And I just saw a picture of it. You're looking good. I mean, I don't know if this is going to help you on the female front. I don't know. What happened? Why did you have to get this buzz cut? And personally, I would have went full bore. You should have went completely bald.
Yeah, I mean, okay, you first, Jeff. We'll say you first on the straight edge baldness.
No way.
The genesis of it, though, was, back in November after the Celtics beat the Warriors, I wrote a column that effectively declared the Eastern Conference race over. And I said the Celtics are going to win the East. Dan Patrick, who I'm a guest on the show a lot, he said no way, the Cavs were still the team to beat out there. So we made a bet. If the Cavs beat the Celtics, it would be my head being saved. If the Celtics beat the Cavs, it meant I could host the show with him sitting in the back row. So I thought the stakes were fine, and I went with it, and I lost. So I paid my bets.
Yeah, like I said, I expected you to look worse, I got to say.
Well, I'll take it. As long as it's not rock bottom, I'll take it.
Now you're going to go into hiding for a few weeks while it grows back?
Yeah, I mean, you have to keep your face off TV as much as possible. That's my only goal for the next month and a half.
All right, well, we'll get into it a little bit here. I'm recording actually in Myrtle Beach. Flew in straight from Vegas where I saw little Bronny, and that was kind of interesting going to a under 13 AAU event. I felt like Clark Francis, which is not a good thing.
Yeah, little creepy, like
lot of
not for you in particular, but little creepy, like evaluating a 13-year-old. I mean, that's always a weird line for me. And I know that the pedigree of LeBron Jr. and of like Zaire Wade and all these young kids, but man, it's a little disconcerting, I guess, to be evaluating 13-year-olds.
It's a whole lot easier evaluating Scottie Pippen and Kenyon Martin's kids who are 17 and are being actually recruited by colleges. But I'll tell you what, when I tweeted out there that I was there to see Bronny James, I must have gotten 50 college coaches texting me right away. How good is he? And like high major dudes. We're not talking mid-major. We're talking guys that are going to want to recruit him. And I'll tell you what. And again, listen, I'm not one. I can't compare him to other 13-year-olds. But what I can say is he's got a high IQ like his dad. He can finish with both hands. He can shoot it. I guess his shot has gotten better, according to Ty Lue, who's seen him plenty. The funniest part, we walk in the gym, and I had no idea he was even playing till that day. And another reporter told me he was going to watch him. So I'm like, yeah, why not? So I go in, and Ty Lue's sitting there with Howard Isley. I'm like, what's going on here? So Howard Isley, his son, was playing the game before. That's why Ty Lue was there. Ty Lue had no idea that Bronny was playing the next game, stuck around for the first half, and then it became kind of a shit show because, LeBron walks in, Chris Paul walks in. It was kind of funny. Lynn Merritt's with him, obviously, from Nike. And Bronny's good, though. I mean, he's going to be a high major player. I'd be shocked if he wasn't. The question is, can he go to Duke? Can he go to Kentucky? Or is he the next tier down? I think he's going to be a guy just with his IQ and his ability to do so many different things. He'll play at the highest level. But I thought it was fun. And I said this to LeBron, Chris. And I tweeted it and got some pushback. But I said, what impressed me the most, and maybe because I don't know all of my daughter's friends' names, and she's 14 years old, he knew every kid's name on that team and gave them kind of feedback, advice, anything when they would come off the court. I was impressed because LeBron's got a whole lot more going on than I do, and he knew everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him, and it's not the same context necessarily, but we've seen him showcase kind of that, encyclopedic memory. Whether it's, how many plays, what player you're talking about in Boston, him reciting all the plays that preceded it, or, coaches that'll tell you all the time in the NBA that LeBron just dissects your team's plays, even before they're even run. I mean, his basketball IQ is off the charts. That's why I think it's, one of the things most interesting about LA next season is going to be him and Rondo playing together. I mean, those are two guys with two of the highest basketball IQs in the NBA. Now, who knows if it works, but that to me is pretty interesting.
Imagine being Luke Walton, drawing up plays for those two, and the feedback he's going to get.
No, I can't. I mean, Luke is in just a incredibly difficult situation, not just because, he's coaching LeBron, and we all know, the number of coaches LeBron has cycled through in his career, but equally as problematic for Luke is that he's still working for people that didn't hire him.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson, Rob Pelinka did not hire Luke Walton. And as you know, whenever an executive comes in, the first thing they want to do is hire their own coach. So no matter what Magic and Rob have said about Luke, I'm not sure that he, I remain need to be convinced that he has the full-throated support of them when times get tough.
All right, so I'm going to circle back to the Lakers a little bit in a bit, but something very interesting you said recently in the last few days that honestly I was kind of scratching my head on a little bit. KD, you said something to the effect of that he will take a long look after this year at going back to Oklahoma City, which I was like, whoa. To me, it would shock me. Why do you think that?
Well, for a couple of reasons. One, you can only read into Kevin Durant's decision to sign a 1+1 that he will be a true free agent next summer. Now, he may go back to Golden State, but he had an opportunity to sign with the Warriors, make even more money, and lock himself in there long term. He didn't do it. The Warriors would have given him that contract. He chose not to take it. So I think next summer we are going to see a Kevin Durant kind of free agency tour. I think we'll see teams recruit him, maybe not the exact same way they did a few years ago, but in that kind of way. And if you start looking at potential teams, I know everybody likes to connect Kevin Durant to Los Angeles, but Jeff, I'm of the belief that if Kevin Durant gets his third championship, he's not going to want to play alongside LeBron James. Kevin Durant's going to want to be the player that eclipses LeBron James. You don't want to go and play with somebody and help him win championships if you're on the Durant level. You want to be the Kobe of this generation.
You want to be the guy
of this generation.
Yeah,
you want to be the guy. So I think that's going to keep him out of L.A. And then where else are you kind of looking around? New York, I don't know.
D.C., Washington.
He's not going to Washington. He doesn't want to play at home. That's been a long-standing thing with him.
But you don't think that could change as he gets older, Chris? You don't think that could change in him saying?
It would have to be a radical change.
Yeah,
it really would, because and I had said for the entire year leading up to his first free agency, he was not going to go to the Wizards. And unless something has significantly changed, I don't see that happen. Now, Oklahoma City, the biggest impediment, I would argue, is the financial gymnastics they have to do to get to clear the cap space. Steven Adams would have to go, other players would have to go. But I have the belief, too, that you don't have cap space until you do. Teams have cleared the necessary cap space to sign guys that want to sign there in the past. And look, we know how sensitive Durant is. He still, reads into the stuff where people say he's a bandwagon jumper. He still gets bothered by people thinking that he's playing in Steph Curry's shadow. The relationship between Durant and Oklahoma City was never really torched. Oklahoma City always said the right things about him, and they always did right by him publicly. And the relationship between Durant and Russell Westbrook, while not being great by any stretch, is probably, I think you'd agree, as good as it's been since he left Oklahoma City. So all of those things are kind of factors that make me think that Oklahoma City will at least be on his list of possibilities next summer.
I just can't see him. He left Oklahoma City partially because he wanted to play in a system where the ball moved, where he got good looks. And part of that was on him, obviously, because he and Russ were both guys that certainly were not ball movers.
I think a lot of that was on him. Russ gets hit with the ball stopper stuff, but Durant's at his best in isolation, and
no
still
doubt.
Is in Oklahoma and Golden State.
But he's playing alongside other guys who move the ball now. And I think ultimately, he signed his contract for personal protection as much as anything else. I think everybody's doing that in the NBA right now, right? other than Paul George, they're signing these kind of deals where they have the ability to opt out after a year or two just because you want to bet on yourself. And I think that's what he's doing here. I don't know where he goes next, but, man, I would be shocked if it was back to OKC. That would be incredible. That would be one of the all-time craziest stories to me. If you get this one right, I will shave my head completely. How's that?
We'll save that audio. But look, I mean, is it any crazier? I mean, you think about how LeBron left Cleveland 4 years ago, or was it now 8 years ago? I mean, it was a napalm relationship. I understand that the relationship between LeBron and Akron and Cleveland is different. Kevin Durant's not from Oklahoma City, but he is so hypersensitive to everything that happened as a result of him leaving, about all the criticisms, the Thunder fans jumping all over him. I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to happen, but, you know, he's going to have a list of teams he talks to, and I'm telling you, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Oklahoma City's on that list.
I think you've been the king of the hot take over the offseason. You know, that you've got the KD, and then you got the Kyrie, which I'm totally agreement with you on that.
Yeah,
one.
but people picked up on that. People, like, you know, after I said it, all of a sudden, you know, I start reading New York stuff. Kyrie starts getting asked about this, and he's not as definitive as people would like. That I wouldn't even call that a hot take with Kyrie. I just think that's reality.
I'm with you. Listen, that one I'm 100% with you, but I think you were the first one to really come out and say, listen, it wouldn't surprise me if Kyrie takes a long, hard look at New York or leaves for New York in a year. And a lot of these guys are hard to read. I think Kyrie is about as hard to read as any of them. And I talked to him at Team USA, you know, camp the other day, and he's just a different dude, and he's always been that way. I don't know what he ends up doing. I get the question all the time. I'm sure you do too. What's Kyrie going to do? You know, from my buddies, from my nephews who are here with me in Myrtle Beach right now, everybody's asking me, what's Kyrie going to do? And my answer to them is probably the same thing you say. Like, I have no idea with Kyrie. You can't get in his head. It's impossible.
He's as tough a guy to read as anybody in the NBA because he's very much a lone wolf. And look, he's well-liked in that Celtics locker room like he was well-liked in that Cavaliers locker room. But I'm not sure that there are a lot of players in either locker room that really connect with him. He's not a bad teammate. It's just that there isn't that you know, Isaiah Thomas, not everybody loved playing with Isaiah Thomas either, but he did connect with a lot of people in that locker room. Kyrie is just a different cat out there. And look, as an unrestricted free agent, I think Boston's still in a front-running position because of the team they have and that fifth year they can throw out there on that contract, which I think will be huge for a player coming off as many knee surgeries as Kyrie had. But I don't think it's a fait accompli that Kyrie just says, you know, re-signs with Boston. I think there's probably going to be a recruitment period for him as well before he decides anything.
Aren't you betting, though, on Brad Stevens and the fact that Brad will make it about Kyrie and make it that Kyrie feels like it's his team and his show, even though it may not be, with the return of Gordon Hayward, with the emergence of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown?
Yeah, hard not to. I mean, you know, Brad is he's been around, 5 years now. How many guys have had even the slightest negative thing to say about Brad Stevens? Any about Brad Stevens? Guys that leave, you know, start feeling for him for Coach of the Year, like Evan Turner did, Isaiah Thomas did after he left. We saw the comments from Isaiah where he thought about going back to Boston to be a backup with the Celtics. I mean, that's, I think, his respect for Brad Stevens and what he can do. Yeah, look, I'm betting on Boston here. I just, you know, there are a lot of free agents out there that you assume are going to automatically re-sign. I don't have that same level of assumption with Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, I ran into Avery Bradley at the Cosmopolitan the other night, and we were talking about Brad, and you know, even he shook his head with the job that Brad did this past year. You know, without Kyrie, without Gordon Hayward, and again, I think Kyrie's going to be one of those guys where we're just going to have to wait it out and see. But I would, if I'm a betting man, I'm still betting that he stays with Boston, because if he leaves another situation where he's got a chance to play for championships, and he did in Cleveland with LeBron, and if he does it again, what type of reputation do you start to get that it's all about you? Yeah,
and don't discount what Hayward can mean to all this too, because You know, David Griffin said this recently where, you know, Kyrie back in 2014 was recruiting Gordon Hayward, wanted to play with him. And, you know, when he got a chance now in Boston, he was giddy about it. And you know, Kyrie said this recently as well, and I know they talked about it in Boston for a while. Their training camp, Jeff, was unbelievable. Like, they had a terrific camp with that group. They thought they were a championship team coming out of camp. So I think playing with Gordon Hayward, if it's as effective as Kyrie thinks it's going to be, that could be another reason for him to stay.
And not only that, Chris, I mean, Hayward, Tatum, Horford, what do they all have in common? They're high
long-term contract.
Well, no, they're high-level character guys who don't care. They're not about themselves. You know, so
and playmakers too. I mean, you know, Kyrie doesn't have to carry that playmaking burden when he's playing with two guys that can pass the ball like those two can.
No, you're right. He can be kind of that scoring point. Nobody has to worry about him being like a facilitator anymore because you're right. Gordon moves the ball now. Obviously, we know what Horford can do from a position that it's not really done very often. And, oh, by the way, Jason Tatum, trust me, can move the ball better than people think. And this past year is just like, okay, be a scorer, Jason. But I think as he evolves and his game evolves, you're going to see he can play make for others as well. So I think you're going to have enough around Kyrie that Kyrie should be happy because this is going to be the best situation for him rather than going with Jimmy Butler, who's got his share of detractors around the league, and try to see what they can do in New York. I don't know. I'd be surprised. I know it's a lot of speculation and talk, but I think at the end of the day, it'll be tough for Kyrie to leave here.
Yeah, and I'm almost as much as anything next season. I'm excited for Jason Tatum to what his development looks like. I mean, you know, you talk to Celtics coach, and I've done that a little bit over the last few weeks. You know, he's already putting on some of that man strength, and when he does that, Jeff, he's going to start going through guys. And you saw last year, his skill set was so high, go around you, shoot over you. Yep. When he starts going through guys, that's going to be another skill set of his that's going to make him just an unstoppable scorer in this league.
No, the guy's incredible. I mean, I've said it. I think he's going to be one of the top 10 offensive players in the game in a few years, and I do. I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. I know that's crazy to say, during his rookie season, but this is a kid who all you got to do is watch not only what he does on the court, but how he conducts himself, how he prepares off the court. Right now he's working out with Kobe a little bit. What's your thought on that? Tatum learning from Kobe, you like it? Want him to stay away? Where are you in that?
It's great for Tatum. My question is though, like, where are the Laker guys working out with him? I mean, I see Kobe with, Tatum. I've seen him with Kawhi. I've seen him with Russell Westbrook. I mean, where are the images or the videos of him and Brandon Ingram and Lonzo and Kyle Kuzma? I mean, there's a whole collection of young players the Lakers claim to be invested in out there. Why are they not in Orange County like every single weekend, at least whenever Kobe's available, working out with him? I think he can have an impact on Tatum. You heard Tatum's public comments, and they were reinforced by people around him that detail thing that Kobe did last year was incredibly impactful on him. Like, he watched it over and over again and tried to glean every bit of knowledge off it. I think it's great for Jason Tatum. My instant reaction was, like, where are these Laker guys, and why are they not working out with a player of Kobe's caliber?
That's a great question. That is a great – like Kuzma especially. Lonzo's hurt with a knee injury, so you can kind of give him a mulligan on that. But the other guys, they should be – Kyle Kuzma should be in the gym with Kobe Bryant every single day. But I think, part of Kyle Kuzma, and I think this is tough for him, is he went from an anonymous player – throughout his entire college career, even at Utah for the most part. Nobody really gave him any credit. And then as a rookie, all of a sudden, it all comes to him. And I think that's hard to deal with in Los Angeles. Kevin Love, that was kind of the big news, I guess, in the last week or so. 4 years, $120 million. I talked to Ty Lue a little bit about it while we were watching Bronny. My feeling is the Cavs really didn't have a choice in this. I don't love it. Cleveland, Kobe Altman probably didn't love it either. But what choice did they have, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, let me first say, good for Kevin Love, a guy that has been as maligned as he has over the years. Is going to now, basically guaranteed $250 million for his career when this contract is up. They'll have a championship, and they'll have put up. As much as we criticize some of the things about his game, they'll have Hall of Fame level numbers. So I think that this is just a great thing for Kevin. That being said, I don't know if I would have given it to him. I know I know the thing now is rebuilding without rebuilding, basically, not doing the Sixers thing. And I know that the new lottery rules have, incentivized not tanking and incentivized doing it this way. But by tying themselves to Kevin Love long term, I know there's some favorable things on the back end of that contract that make it, more appealing. I just think it limits their option. Now, you can make the argument that he becomes more tradable under a long-term deal. I get that. But if I'm the Cavs, and it looks like Colin Sexton can play, I mean, from what I saw from the Summer League, he looks pretty good. I would have made flexibility a priority, and I wouldn't have been so hell-bent on, kind of maintaining my status as a fringe contender in my conference. So that was a head scratch to me. I'm with you that I understand the thinking behind it. I just don't think I would have done it.
Yeah, I just think they felt like if not, you're going full rebuilding mode, and you still got a lot of, you still got some veterans on the Cavs that you really don't want anymore. J.R. Smith, certainly. So you can't even fully rebuild right now. That's the hard part for them, is I think if they could get out from under some of those contracts, they might just say the hell with it. Let's go with the youth movement and see what we can do and turn the ball over to Colin Sexton. But I don't even know if they're going to be able to do that next year, because you got other veterans on the team that are going to want to get theirs to get maybe one final contract. It's going to be interesting to see.
That's the thing. That's the thing, though. Too. Though, like Kevin Love's got another year left in his contract. I would have let them play out this year under those, circumstances. I mean, one thing about Kevin Love, and this isn't a criticism, Kevin Love wants to get his money, and if the Cavs came back at the end of next season with a 5-year offer, for Kevin Love, he would have signed it.
Yeah.
He would have taken max dollars for them at the end of his current deal. So I might have rolled the dice and seen what I had with this group before I made any kind of long-term commitment to that kind of money.
All right, so Western Conference, we're going to circle back to the Lakers a little bit. Where do the Lakers finish this year in the Western Conference? Number one, and I'm always told don't ask double-barrel questions, but I think you can handle them. You're not going to forget one of them, so I'm going to ask you it anyway. Number two, what teams get left out in the Western Conference? Who are the ones that aren't going to finish in the playoffs that everybody kind of just thinks will at the end of the day?
I mean, I can answer them both the same. I think the Lakers get left out.
Wow, come on. You're out of your mind.
I think it's going to take – okay, all right. Well, as I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of this roster as it comes to being around LeBron James. It took 47 wins last year to get into the playoffs in the West. I think it's going to take just as many this year because Minnesota's going to be better. I don't think San Antonio falls off the map. Remember, they played all last year without DeMar or without Kawhi.
Yep.
Now they had a healthy DeMar DeRozan. I think they're still a solid playoff team in that conference. And I don't see this Laker team coming together very quickly, Jeff. Honestly, I think they've struggled out of the gate. I think by Christmas we're talking about the Lakers as a 500 team. And do they turn the corner as the NBA season kind of unofficially begins after Christmas? I'm not sold on that either. I mean, I just don't love the mix of players they put around LeBron James. They're basically saying that everything Miami did, everything Cleveland did, it's not for us. We're going to do something different. We're going to put the ball in ball-dominant guards' hands like Rondo and Lonzo and even Lance Stevenson, and we're going to play through the post. I mean, even if it works, it's going to take some time to kind of assemble a system around those guys. So I think there's not enough time for them to figure it out to get the 47, 48 wins they're going to need to get into the playoffs.
Man, I'm not betting against LeBron, and I feel like if you pair – and I know what you're saying. Like, the one thing with LeBron and Lonzo is neither are great shooters. They're not. But as long as Kuzma can make some shots next year and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope can make some shots, I can't imagine this is a Lakers team that's not going to get in the top 4 or 5 of the Western Conference. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to immediately be there. Yes, they're going to struggle after, first 20 games. People are going to be looking at them, and they're going to be 10-10 or 12-8, and people are going to be saying, well, this was a train wreck. But I just feel like if there's anybody that can figure this thing out, and if there's anybody that can help Lonzo Ball be a better – like, I think this is the greatest thing to ever happen for Lonzo Ball because this kid doesn't show any emotion whatsoever. LeBron's going to get him to show emotion. LeBron's going to get him to be ready to be a leader maybe in his next spot. Will he ever be a vocal leader? No. But I just think we don't give LeBron enough credit for some of the other things that he's going to bring to the table to get these guys to work at a completely different level than they've ever worked before. And it's a young group that needs that.
Oh, I think LeBron will do that. I think in practices, Rondo will do that. I think even Lance Stevenson has the potential to do that in practices. But, you mentioned Lonzo. If LeBron has a voice in who's playing at end of games, he will at some level. Who do you think he wants to play at the end of games? The guy with the championship ring and a high basketball IQ in Rondo, or Lonzo Ball at the end of those games? And if that happens, you think that LeVar keeps quiet in those situations? I mean, this guy's, I used the word combustible a lot during the last month or so. It's apt. It's the right word for that mix right there. I just think, look, they're thinking with this group is that we're going to ease the burden on LeBron James, not make him be a point guard as much. Look, that's a reasonable way to think because the Cavs didn't want LeBron to be the point guard as much as he did. They felt it taxed him too much. At the same time, and Ty Lue has said this, he's great with the ball in his hands. So why are you really going to spend that much time taking the ball out of the hands of one of the greatest players in the game who plays well with the ball in his hands? So all these things, these question marks, maybe they're not going to get their act in time to pick what they need.
New Orleans. That's kind of the other one that intrigues me only for the future of Anthony Davis. Are they a lock to get in that top 8? I know they didn't have Boogie last year and they were better without him. But is that sustainable this year? Are they an injury away from being a non-playoff team again? Or maybe even they don't need an injury. Maybe they just played over their head a little bit last year and the league has gotten better. The Western Conference, for the most part, I mean, Denver's got all their core guys back. They're better. Minnesota, if Karl Anthony Towns and Wiggins can learn to defend a little bit, they get better. Like you said, San Antonio, they played without Kawhi. Now they've got a healthy DeRozan. Utah's a year older. Oklahoma City, it's probably addition by subtraction without Carmelo. You can look at the top 8 or so teams. The Lakers are in the mix. They're all better for the most part. Is New Orleans potentially left out? And if they are, do you see any scenario where Anthony Davis at the break says, listen, guys, I want to get the hell out of here. I want to win.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a couple of questions you asked there. Number one, I look at the Pelicans as a team that's probably going to be in a dogfight with, like, Denver, the Lakers, for that final spot in the West. I mean, look, the dirty secret about Rajon Rondo is as great as he was in the playoffs, he's not the same guy in the regular season. No. I mean, one of the reasons they didn't re-sign him there was because they don't know what they're going to get out of him every regular season game. So, it's not as catastrophic a loss, I think, as it will be in the playoffs because Rondo is so good in the postseason. Now, replacing with Elfrid Payton does nothing for me because Elfrid Payton is a very, very poor man's Rajon Rondo, and you have to lean even more on Drew Holiday to be more effective at that point guard spot. You throw in the fact they still need to add probably a shooter or two around Anthony Davis to be effective, and I think they do take a step back. I like Julius Randle. I think he's going to be a good fit alongside Davis in the smaller front court. I love Nikola Mirotic. I love the smaller front court that goes there. But in that conference, I think they're tooth and nail, in that 7, 8, 9, kind of mix up there. Now, the second part to your question is what does Anthony Davis do? And this is what everybody around the league is kind of zeroing in on. They are waiting for the first time that Anthony Davis grumbles a little bit, right? They're waiting to hear either private or public.
He's not a grumbler. Yeah, he's not, and he's not a grumbler, which you got to give him credit for. But eventually, how much can you take?
But that's the first domino to fall. Once he starts kind of griping a little bit about what's going on there and why they can't put their type of team around him, that's when you start to panic in New Orleans. When I talk to people down in New Orleans, and look, they're now fully entrenched there. I believe both the coaches and the GM, got extensions somewhat recently. They're not talking about moving Anthony Davis. They're not entertaining anything seriously about moving Anthony Davis. That could change. It probably will change. Once if Davis starts publicly or privately grumbling about where they're at.
And that'll be the interesting thing. If that happens, certainly the Celtics have the most to offer in tradable assets. Were you surprised?
We're going to be saying the Celtics have the most to offer until 5 years from now. I mean, they're going to have the Celtics and the word assets attached to them for at least the next 5 years.
Well, the interesting part, too, everybody not everybody, but a lot of people wanted the Celtics to make a move for Kawhi and give up, a combination of future assets and current assets, and they weren't going to throw Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum certainly in the mix. But I think the smart move is always you don't want to trade right now. The draft pick, the Sacramento pick, isn't worth as much as it's going to be once the college season starts. This draft has very little value right now at the top. Guys like R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish, people are saying they're good players, but they haven't looked good in McDonald's game and some of the other things, the practices leading up to McDonald's if the NBA players have been able to attend. But listen, somebody's got to look good in the college game. Somebody's stock has to soar every year. And to me, you wait until that happens, and then those draft picks become more valuable than they are right now. So I think Danny Ainge did the right thing there, standing pat for a variety of reasons. Number one, more than anything, was you couldn't have been certain that Kawhi Leonard would stay for more than a year, and you're not going to give up Jaylen Brown plus a Sacramento pick and who knows what else in order to get a guy that might have bolted after a year.
Yeah, I mean, I vacillated kind of back and forth on the Kawhi stuff. I was less concerned with whether he'd stay, even though it's a legitimate concern. But I've always believed that the people around Kawhi are pushing him in the LA direction more than Kawhi actually is. I think Kawhi wants to play basketball, and I think he wants to win. And in a Boston environment, playing against Brad Stevens, I think they could have sold him on that. It's the injury that makes me wonder. And look, if you're only having to give up a Terry Rozier and a future draft pick or whatever, you roll the dice and you take your chances there. But if it is a Jaylen Brown who, is not, doesn't have the same ceiling as Jason Tatum, but still has all-star, perennial all-star potential and is already a better defensive player than Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, I agree. I don't make that type of risk with a team that at worst is a co-favorite to win the whole thing this year.
All right, well, listen, I appreciate you jumping on after your little head shaving routine here, and you got to figure out a way to get that thing back soon. Maybe just put a hat on, I guess, is the best advice I'd have for you.
No, the hat messes with you, man. I got to go to like the CVS and buy like all that super strong conditioner and whatever those vitamins are. Like if you're in the market for if you have like a fake vitamin that'll help grow your hair back, rest assured, I will buy it.
Yeah, I will be somewhere
buying it.
By the way, I saw your favorite spot in Vegas the other day when I was walking out of the Cosmopolitan. That I forget what it's called when you the IV deal.
Oh, the Hangover Doctor. Yeah, I had that in Boston just last week.
They have them like everywhere now. I hadn't seen it before. They got one in the Cosmopolitan. It was like $99. I thought about it after I went to Omnia to see Calvin Harris. I was hurting a little bit. And I won't lie to you. I thought about going in there for a minute, but I'm like, this is just wrong, man. I'm too old for this crap.
No, I should be a spokesman for that company. The number of times I've used that service, man. And look, that $99. Let me tell you, someone that has the docs come to your house, in the Northeast area, whether it's New York or Boston, that's a deal. Take it. $99. That's a deal.
All right. Well, there's your sales pitch. Somebody should give you a little bit of a kickback for that one. I appreciate you coming on. And try to get some rest here as we get into August. Thanks, Chris.
Anytime, Jeff.
Take care, man. So I'm in Myrtle Beach now after a few days in Vegas where I did some AAU basketball against Bronny James, 13 years old. Went to Team USA. It was good. I mean, first night was intriguing for me. There was a huge matchup of AAU teams at that point. The two best teams from different circuits playing against each other. And you had some NBA guys that show up. So many NBA guys actually sponsor teams now. It's kind of cool to watch. I was talking to Avery Bradley about that when I ran into him. And you see everybody now. I mean, Kevin Durant came to the Peach Jam. Victor Oladipo was there watching Team Takeover. And all of a sudden, I didn't even realize I'm sitting 2 seats down from Isaiah Thomas, who blocked me on Twitter about, I don't know, a year, 2 years ago, something like that. I think it was when I made the case that Isaiah Thomas was not one of the top 25 players in the NBA. I think at one point I said he wasn't one of the top 50, and then I gave him the credit of not putting him somewhere from 25 to 50, and I still stand true to that. Even after what he did for 2 years in Boston, I feel like because of his defensive liabilities, there's no way you could put him one of the top 25 players in the world, even when he was healthy. But it was interesting looking over, seeing him a couple spots over. But, I hope he does well in his endeavor in Denver. You never want to see a guy's career go the way it did for him, because while he didn't deserve, and I said this last week, and wasn't going to get max money, he was certainly going to get more than $2 million a year. So Isaiah Thomas, he was there. So he was at Team USA training camp. Didn't really do anything. Just went through kind of drills, shooting drills for the most part. Same thing with Kyrie Irving, Mike Conley. I had a chance to talk to Kyrie for a few minutes after the first session, and just kind of find out where Kyrie was at more than anything health-wise. And, said he's working out now, not doing 5-on-5 contact, but will be full go, not worried at all about training camp, which is still, we're talking, 2 months away at this point. So he feels confident about that. He's excited about to see, where this team's going to be right now, because, like everybody else, he was a bystander for the playoffs. He hasn't had a chance to really play with Gordon Hayward. And as you heard Chris Mannix talk about, in training camp, they had it working. And Gordon Hayward is such an easy guy to play with, both on and off the court, that I don't think it'll be hard to integrate him into this group next year. And that's going to be the easy part. You're adding a piece, but you're adding a piece that's all about team and will make people better because of his ability to pass the ball. He can score. He's not selfish. So you throw him in and you see the jump that Jason Tatum's probably going to make from his rookie year to his sophomore year in the NBA. And you could tell Kyrie is super excited to watch how this kind of plays out. But I asked him, are you the guys that are going to challenge Golden State? And he wasn't ready to quite, to go there at this point, because like the rest of us, he wants to see how this comes to play. But the other thing that you watch, just when you see these Team USA guys going at it, and this was like 2 practices. This was nothing. This was more of just a get-together for Greg Popovich to pretty much introduce himself as the head coach. And you watch how hard they go in practices. Everybody. Russ, KD defending. KD defending was the part that blew me away. Getting after it in every possession, and James Harden. And, a lot of the big boys weren't there. LeBron wasn't there. Jimmy Butler, Kawhi. Again, some of these guys sat out. Kevin Love sat out as well with an injury. But the guys who were in the court, it was a war. And you kind of wonder, why? Well, because they're just competitive. They want to run like this. And they want to be ready for the Olympics. And the one thing people don't understand right now, this group that Jeff Van Gundy's coaching, they have to qualify for the World Cup first to get in the Olympics. And this is a team, he's got different players coming in and out, and a few of the players were there this week, like Larry Drew, the second or third. I don't remember if it's second or third. But he's on that team, and they've got guys that people haven't even heard of. And they're on these teams, and if they don't do well, I think they've got 5 or 6 games left. If they don't do well in those games, and they're going to play against teams that are probably have some stars, they will not qualify for the World Cup, and that means they don't get a chance to qualify for the Olympics. So that's something to watch right now that very few people understand and know about. This team that Jeff Van Gundy's coaching, they have to do something here in these last 5 or 6 games, or else there's a chance they don't qualify for the Olympics, which would be absolutely insane. So they're trying to recruit better players, but a lot of the games are going to be played in January, February, right in the heart of the NBA season, so you can't get NBA players. So Alex Caruso was a guy that was on these teams. He's kind of a two-way guy for the Lakers. Those are the type of guys they're looking at. So Jeff Van Gundy is probably the right pick for this, because obviously you got a guy who can really coach it up. Anyway, thanks for joining us for another edition of Good and Plenty. Again, can subscribe, Stitcher, iTunes, CLNS Media. Give us a review, please, and come back next Tuesday, as always, for another edition. Good and Plenty.